Queen Margrethe II of Denmark. Monarch, artist, style icon.
It's not just normal glamour. It's something fairy tale-like or mad.
Astonishingly educated, creative, charismatic.
And she's quite clearly way far and beyond the most intelligent of all those monarchs in Europe.
Born one of 3 girls, she was not destined for the throne.
The expectation was male inheritance. Her mother and father were never to have a son, and the throne would therefore pass to her uncle.
Nazi Germany occupied Denmark during World War II. Margrethe was a beacon of hope for a new future.
The royal family was very much ashamed about Denmark because we could not take up the fight with the Germans at the time.
She was a light in a dark time.
The first Danish monarch in centuries to marry a commoner.
It was pretty much claps of thunder when she saw him. It was a love match.
A queen that did it her way. She's challenged the status quo and changed what it means to be a modern monarch.
She found this safe haven where she can develop herself as an artist and at the same time fulfilling her job as a regent.
On New Year's Eve, Queen Margrethe shocked the Danish people by announcing her decision to abdicate on live television. Her son, Crown Prince Frederik, will now be king, bringing an end to Queen Margrethe's 52-year reign. Since 1972, Margrethe II of Denmark has reigned.
She is a rather eccentric, charismatic, colourful, stylish, passionate and artistic woman.
With its laid-back lifestyle, Denmark is often said to be one of the happiest places in the world to live.
We're very equal in Denmark. Our education is for free. They all have a place to live. They all get money from the government. I mean, you have so many benefits in Denmark.
The Danish royal court reflects that relaxed atmosphere.
Well, Denmark is much more informal than Britain. Queen Margrethe can walk around in the streets of Copenhagen quite informally if she wants to.
Well, I've known the Queen since I was a child because my parents are good friends with the royal family. She's accessible. People feel they're close to the Queen. And I think that's a huge difference from some other countries where it's a very long way to get close to the Queen.
Margrethe has made the monarchy her own, but as a child contemplating her future as a ruler, she looked to her third cousin in Britain for inspiration.
Ahead of Queen Elizabeth's Diamond Jubilee in 2012, Queen Margrethe gave an interview where she said that as a young child, she had been so impressed when she had heard the Queen's speech from South Africa when she turned 21.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong.
This gave Queen Margrethe a set of guidelines with which she herself could seek to rule.
I've always admired her, and I think she's inspired me in one particular thing, right from the start, when even before she was queen, when she talked about dedicating herself to her nation. And I remember thinking when I was quite young, long before my father died, that was really what it is all about.
The two queens were good friends. Queen Elizabeth II awarded Margrethe the Order of the Garter and a Dame Grand Cross, the highest rank of the Royal Victorian Order. Henning Fyhl has been Queen Margrethe's private secretary for years.
Der er jo meget tætte forbindelser mellem de to kongehuse, og det skyldes jo selvfølgelig først og fremmest, at der er meget tætte familiemæssige bånd imellem det engelske kongehus og det danske kongehus. Dronningen har den tradition igennem mange, mange år, at dronningen meget, meget fast i London, i hvert fald en gang om året.
There have been state visits to and from on several occasions. Our Queen, of course, went to Denmark when King Frederick was there in 1957. He had come on a state visit in 1951. Queen Margrethe came on her first state visit in 1974.
In this rarely seen footage of the 1974 state visit, Queen Margrethe enjoys the pomp and pageantry of the British court. Queen Margrethe has been a proud head of state in Denmark, but she wanted to be more than a monarch. She had her own ideas of the kind of queen she should be. It was unlike any other.
It became important to her to make sure to have time to develop her own creativity. So she spent time painting and drawing and designing, and as well as taking care of matters of state.
Margrethe is prolific as an artist. I mean, she's an incredible kind of polymath of both being an intellectual but also this kind of passionate artist.
The modern monarch's talents extended from paintings to the stage and to the screen.
She does both drawings and paintings and decoupage, but also scenography and costumes for ballet and textile production for the church.
Everything is a canvas for the creative queen. Even when she's at lunch with friends, things can get a bit competitive.
There have been occasions where we have been together painting Easter eggs. And sitting here with my pen, trying to do it nicely and everything, and the Queen is just like painting and painting and painting and put them up here and there and everywhere. And I get my one done, and I gave up while the Queen is making this mass production of eggs, and they're really good. She's really good. It's such a joy.
Queen Margrethe has always been creative. It's been something she's enjoyed since she was a young girl. But at first, a lack of confidence meant she kept her work to herself.
You know, the Queen comes across as such an articulate and confident and charismatic individual, but she wasn't always like that. And in interviews, you know, she has confessed that she doubted her own abilities.
It was quite a long time from when I was about 17, 18 until I was nearly 30, where I didn't really believe that the talent I might have was really worth that much. But then I found that when I was about 30, I simply couldn't keep it. I just had to express myself in paintings and things.
She's always been drawing. It's just like she never stopped. She would read Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings out loud to her children, and she would start drawing this mythical universe to herself. But then you also sense that she actually wants to share it with the world, so she sent the drawings to Tolkien. And after his death, they found these drawings and they had his positive remarks on them. And so they chose to publish The Lord of the Rings with the Queen's illustrations.
As her confidence grew, Margrethe decided she was ready to share her work. The Danish public would discover their Queen's artistic side.
When she did her first public exhibition in 1988, there was a bit skepticism from the press. So no, they were a bit, how can you be both a queen and an artist?
It's easy to make that criticism, and she realizes it will come. And God bless her, she barges sort of ahead.
In celebration of the 40th anniversary of the reign of Queen Margrethe, an exhibition of her art was staged, consisting of 135 acrylic and watercolour paintings and decoupage. She spoke of how important art was to her.
It's an enormous satisfaction to be doing something that you really like doing. And it's also a way of, sort of recharging my batteries.
Over the years, I think most Danes just gotten used to it.
What we see today is a full-grown artist displaying in different exhibitions her artworks, and is looked upon as a true artist.
The AROS Aarhus Art Museum proudly displays the Queen's artwork.
So here we have one of Her Majesty the Queen's paintings. It's from our own collection, and it's called Park Avenue Fredensborg. And as you can see, it's not a completely naturalistic painting. It has this level of abstraction. We can see these larger fields of colors or geometric forms, these squares and straight lines.
The Queen's creativity extends beyond the canvas. But Margrethe faced criticism from some, who suggested that she was taking jobs in the art world other Danes could do.
She has worked very hard to put quality into what she's doing, and I think deserves the respect for what she actually has produced.
It's not as if she's in the job market, is she? I mean, she's invited occasionally to undertake certain commissions for the ballet, for the theatre, and she, by her actions, does so much to raise the public profile of these, cultural institutions.
I don't think she's taking anything away, and I bet you that after she's done it, it's inspired lots of youngsters.
The Queen's openness is a trait she's loved for. In 2022, her Golden Jubilee was celebrated across the country, and the Queen gave an intimate look into her life when she exhibited her private jewellery collection.
What I wanted to tell is a story of 50 years of Wayne. I had a talk with the Queen about the different pieces of jewellery and also the stories behind them. The pieces of jewellery tells a very strong story about how the Queen uses jewellery to send a message.
The exhibition, called A Queen's Jewellery Box, tells the personal life of a monarch from a different perspective.
It's not very flashy somehow. It's very subtle. But I mean, it used to belong to Catherine the Great, and just, again, beautiful diamonds in the middle of those flowers with turquoise. But it's not all about diamonds and turquoise and rubies. It's kind of also a pair of favorite earrings belonging to the Queen. And they have this beautiful, beautiful blue color. They are made of plastic. They probably have cost the Queen £20. She bought them in a small shop near her summer residence. They tell a story about a queen where diamonds are not the important thing. I love those earrings because of that story.
The unique blend of heritage and informality in her jewellery is also reflected in the way Queen Margrethe II has changed what it means to be a monarch in a rapidly changing modern world. Now she's abdicating after more than half a century on the throne. What will her legacy be? Queen Margrethe II has reigned over Denmark during a long period of peace and stability. It's a far cry from the chaotic state of her country in her early years. Born on the 16th of April 1940, Margrethe Alexandrine Thorhilde Ingrid was a welcome distraction for the Danish people. The country was at war.
Our Queen, she was born in 1940, which is a very dark time in the Danish history because of the Second World War. She was a light in a dark time.
That was only a week after the Germans had occupied Denmark.
On the morning of the 9th of April 1940, Denmark was attacked by Germany. After only a few hours, the government surrendered. Denmark became an occupied country, controlled by Nazi Germany.
When she grew elder, she had a lot of conversation with her parents about that very dark period of time in Denmark. Actually, the royal family was very much ashamed about Denmark because we could not take up the fight with the Germans at the time.
Like the British monarchy, the Danish royal family remained in their country throughout the war. On May the 4th, 1945, Denmark was liberated from German occupation. Margrethe was 5. The daughter of Crown Prince Frederik and Princess Ingrid, known to her family as Daisy, Margrethe was the eldest of 3 girls. They lived a happy life in Amalienborg Palace in the Danish capital, Copenhagen.
Of course, Queen Margrethe, she was growing up in a royal family, and that goes without saying that this is different from other families. But I would add that in many aspects, it was a quite normal family life.
She has 2 younger sisters, Princess Benedict and Anne-Marie. They're a very, very close-knit family.
As a child, Margrethe was not expected to become the country's monarch.
Up until the age of 13, a little bit like Queen Elizabeth II, she didn't realise that she was going to be queen, and then she had to accept that responsibility.
She certainly wasn't destined to be queen. The expectation was primogeniture, male inheritance. The expectation was that the throne would therefore pass to her uncle.
Prince Canute, he just wasn't up to it, and so they changed the succession, which didn't please the brother very much, in order to make her heir to the throne.
I think there was an impression that the other part of the family were not able to do the job, to put it quite frankly.
The 1953 Act of Succession brought about a change in the law that meant in the absence of a male heir, the king's daughter would inherit the throne.
They believed that would be the right thing to do. It was quite dramatic, and also it has been, I think, quite traumatic for the royal family.
Margarethe's uncle, who had been really looking forward to taking over, was suddenly without a job, and he was furious that suddenly this 13-year-old was looking at her own role in life as a future queen.
To mark the occasion, Margrethe's father gave her a small gift.
It's not big, has a few rubies in it, but I think what is most important about this piece is what it symbolizes, Constitution. And horseshoe, of course, symbolizes good luck. So the king wanted to wish his daughter good luck with her future position.
The 13-year-old Margrethe now had to look to the future as the heir to the Danish throne. In a 2012 interview ahead of her Ruby Jubilee, Margrethe talks candidly about her family downplaying the fact that she would one day become queen.
They began to talk to me about it in the winter before, in 52, I think, when I was 12, but they didn't make a huge thing out of it. My father was immensely pleased that his child would take the succession.
When the Queen was asked years later about the moment she learned that she would be queen, she confessed that the first thought that occurred to her was not that she would one day be wearing a lot of jewels and having a crown on her head, but that her beloved father would be dead for her to be queen.
What it brought home to me was that I would lose my father one day. And that, I think, I remember as being the thing I really feared.
And I think that is so revealing and tells us so much about the love they shared as a family.
She was going to be queen, and her training was very intense from that time on. She was carefully prepared. Her parents thought it important that their daughters learn to dance, learn to ride, learn to comport themselves, to allow them to relax a bit and be in control of some things, because other things they were not in control of.
There was a lot of education she had to go through. She has to learn about international politics. She has to see the world. And she did all these things. And I think she really did all her best to prepare herself for her role.
In 1955, the young princess came to Britain to further her education. She attended North Foreland Lodge Girls' School, in Hampshire. It was a welcome break for the teenager.
She was to become the Queen of Denmark. And being a teenager and having a carefree life where you don't have to think about the future in that way, it was good for her to go to a boarding school in England and be away for a little while.
She feels very, very close to the British people. And this year on the boarding school was important. I think she felt she was more independent.
On her return to Denmark, Margrethe continued with her secondary school education. 2 years later, in 1958, on her 18th birthday, Margrethe would make one of her first large-scale public appearances. The reticent princess was thrust into the limelight.
She started out as a rather shy girl in her teenage years. It wasn't that easy for her to learn to perform. She explained once that the first time, I think maybe her 18th birthday, when she would be acclaimed on the balcony, she felt a little nervous about that.
And that was one of the first time where she really should meet the public. She was really a nerve wreck. She was extremely nervous. She got a wonderful advice from her own father, the king, because he tried to explain to her, there's nothing to be afraid of. You know, all the people here, they are here to say hello. And then he showed her simply with his own arms, you know, do like this. Show the people that you take all their love and affection, and it really goes to your heart. And if you take a look on some of the old films from that period and from that specific day, you can see the queen, she's trying to do that. It's a bit hard for her, but she's trying.
From then on, Margrethe would begin to step up her preparations for one day becoming Denmark's monarch. She was given a seat on the Council of State. She would chair the meetings in the absence of her father, the king. She also joined Denmark's Women's Flying Corps, where she served as a volunteer.
This is not very well known, but she actually took part of the Danish defense organization, and she has told me that if she had been a boy, she would definitely have been a soldier, and she would have done even more than she did at the time.
Aged 19, Margrethe graduated high school in 1959. A highly intelligent woman, alongside her native Danish, she speaks English, French, German, Swedish, and a pinch of Faroese for good measure. The multilingual princess's skills allowed her to study in universities all over Europe. It was quite a list of achievements.
She studied at 5 universities: Philosophy and Administration and Constitutional Law in Copenhagen, International Law and Archaeology at Cambridge, Civics at Denmark's second most famous university, French and Jurisprudence at the Sorbonne in Paris, and Sociology at the London School of Economics.
While the future queen was dedicated to her studies, her friends were marrying and starting families. The princess began to wonder if she too would find her happily ever after.
I think it's almost heartbreaking, actually, because there were some years that she actually feared that she would never be able to find a husband, because she was speculating and she was thinking, you know, which man would actually go into this life, and also which man would like to be a step behind me. So she was afraid that she was not able to find a partner.
In 1965, Margrethe returned to England to continue her studies at the prestigious London School of Economics. While there, she met a charming French diplomat, Henri de Laborde de Montpezat.
And then, of course, as we know, the miracle happens in '65, because she, in London, met Prince Henrik, and that was a completely change in her life.
She was in love with this wonderful, very good-looking French man. She was the first one to marry a commoner and still being able to seek the throne. But this is that was a modern world. We were getting into a modern world in the 60s.
Like his future wife, Henrik was creative. He thought about a career in the arts, but his family had other plans. He was conscripted into the French army and fought in the Algerian War between 1959 and 1962. After the war, he joined the French Foreign Service and moved to London.
He was very well educated. He has studied at the Sorbonne. He has experienced life in the, fighting in the Algerian War. He's a professional, he's a linguist. He's written poetry, he was a pianist, he loved cooking, he had a wide range of skills and interests.
It wasn't just a love match, it was a meeting of minds. But being a future head of state, the young couple could not simply decide to marry. They had to seek permission from not only her parents, but Parliament too.
She was absolutely sure that she wanted to go to her parents, and she simply told them, I have found the man I would like to marry. And then they met secretly, and the king and the queen said yes.
Their courtship, which went on for more than a year before the announcement of the engagement, was really kept under the radar. I mean, when the engagement was announced, it really did come as a shock to everybody.
In preparation for joining the Danish royal family, he changed his name from Henri to Henrik, converted to Lutheranism, and learned to speak Danish. The couple married on the 10th of June, 1967. The Queen's private jewellery collection reveals a special token given to her by her husband on their wedding day.
Those beautiful earrings with pearls and diamonds. Those were her wedding present from her husband in 1967 when they got married. A pair of earrings that the Queen was also wearing on the day that she became a queen in 1972.
The wedding would be the start of a long and happy marriage.
They had quite a lot of fun in the early days of their marriage. There are lots of photographs of Margrethe and Prince Henrik dancing together in the south of France, having an amazing time one way and another. And then, of course, they had the two sons very soon afterwards.
Just 5 years into their marriage, their easygoing family lifestyle would change. Margrethe's father, King Frederick, suddenly fell ill.
She didn't think she was ready. I guess nobody's ready to lose a parent, but this also had other consequences for her.
January 1972, King Frederick IX of Denmark delivers his annual televised New Year's speech. His appearance caused the nation concern.
Gud bevare Danmark.
It was quite clear to everyone that he looked very tired, very exhausted. And then the next day, the first day in the new year, Queen Ingrid, she called her daughter, Margrethe, and she told the daughter that, the king is very sick.
It was a sudden illness, a sudden decline, which ultimately saw him dying quite dramatically and quite suddenly, and therefore the throne was kind of thrust upon Margrethe.
She was devastated when he died, but at the same time, she had this feeling that her father wanted her to step up.
On the 14th of January 1972, Margrethe became queen.
Dronning Margrethe overtog tronen efter sin far, Frederik IX, den 14. januar 1972. Hun var på det tidspunkt 31 år gammel.
The following day, Margrethe was proclaimed Denmark's monarch at the Christiansborg Palace.
I remember I was a child when King Frederik IX died and the Queen came out at the balcony in her black dress. It was very touching because she was fragile. She was young.
One of the differences between the Danish and the British monarchy is the fact there isn't a coronation. So there was no coronation for Margrethe. Instead, she was proclaimed queen and she appeared on the balcony, and it was a kind of declaration by her appearance. So much, much different than the coronation and the pomp and pageantry of the British monarchy.
While working on a book with the Queen about her gowns, author and textile conservator Katja Johansson noticed something unusual about the Queen's usually perfectly polished appearance.
I found some photographs taken from behind her on the balcony. Most people just saw her as a bit of a figure from far away, in black and with a long veil. And I asked, "What is this black gown that you're wearing?" And she said, "I didn't have anything to wear. We weren't prepared." So she borrowed a black dress that belonged to her mother. It didn't quite fit because she was already quite a bit taller than Queen Ingrid, and so it only sort of came down to her ankles. But imagine not being prepared in a house that's prepared for everything. But they managed it, and she did beautifully.
The scene was quite extraordinary because this was a bitter cold day in January. And it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the setting was the big Parliament building in the center of Copenhagen. And you will watch the balcony. The Prime Minister will enter the balcony together with the Queen, and there he will simply say to the public, "Here, the King is dead. This is our new Queen."
Now monarch, Margrethe started to settle into her new role. It would not be so simple for her husband. He struggled to find a place for himself within the new court. It would be problematic for the new Queen, her government, and Prince Henrik himself.
There have been discussions in Denmark. Prince Henrik was not His Majesty, he was only Royal Highness. But I think at that time when the Queen became the Queen and Her Majesty, it was like the Danish government and the Danish royal family would look into England, like the Queen of England was married and her husband was a prince. And the same was happening in Holland. So they kind of adopted, I think, what they did in England.
While her husband found life difficult at court, Margrethe had her own struggle at home. Juggling monarchy and raising children wasn't easy.
She has several times expressed regret that she was not more aware of them when they were small, that she thinks she should have paid more attention to them. But I think one has to remember that she was a very young mother when she suddenly got queen and had this enormous burden and also responsibility put on her shoulders.
Her 2 small children was looked after by nannies and whatever was in the royal house, because she didn't have the time to be the mother. But this is how it is when you are born into a royal family. You know the rules, and the rules come before feelings. Denmark comes before family.
With the help of the royal household, Queen Margrethe created a happy home for her children. Her husband Henrik played a big part raising the 2 young princes.
In 1974, the Queen allows the cameras in for a documentary to film her at play with her children as she ran around with the 2 young boys, the family sitting down to a make-believe tea party. And I think what it reveals is that the closeness that the 4 of them shared.
Prince Henrik had a big impact on how the family life actually turned out. He was very good in keeping the family together, but the 2 of them together made them strong. You can see the results of today. You have a very well-working crown prince and a crown princess.
The Queen, being a perfectionist, has often claimed that she felt that she didn't give her children enough time. But I don't think she did too badly, given she has imparted her sense of duty and values to them.
The Queen is a very proud mother of 2 sons and 2 daughter-in-laws and a lot of grandchildren. They're all performing well. The Crown Prince and the Prince Joachim grew up in a family with love.
It's not just the easygoing nature of the family that grabs the headlines. The Queen herself regularly makes front pages for what she wears. Queen Margrethe was acclaimed by Vogue as an unsung style heroine. Fashion critic Anders Christian Masden is a fan of this quirky queen.
Her way of dressing is otherworldly, and I mean that in the best possible way. Of course, also something that comes with being sort of isolated from normality your whole life, then you have the opportunity to be that way. She has actually really seized the opportunity and understood that she was someone who could do that. She who dares.
She enjoys a little bit of provocation. She likes waking people up.
She's a keen historian, and she loves the stage, and I think those 2 things combined have really played a massive part in the way that she dresses, the way she fashions herself as a queen. You'll see her in gold brocade, which looks like something Elizabeth I could have worn. It's almost like armor, completely of a different era.
There's a dark, dark, dark blue, almost black ball gown of tulle, meters and meters and meters of plissé tulle, and she designed that dress. She thought it would be interesting to use about 50 meters of fabric for one dress, and it has flounces and all this tulle is in different layers. It's sort of cascading, and it's such a wonderful silhouette.
She has these other moments that, in my eyes, are more sort of directional in terms of fashion. The dress that comes to mind in particular is a dress by Jørn Bender, who did a lot of her dresses. It's a flamingo pink floor-length dress, so nipped in at the waist, like cinched, and you know she's got a fabulous figure. And then it's got propeller sleeves, and it looks like a work of art.
It's not just the statement gowns that make Margrethe happy. The simple pieces equally put a smile on the Queen's face.
The white summer dress. It occurred to me that every time I saw photographs of her in that dress, she was happy. When she described it for me, I had noted that it had piped edging. And I asked if those were gold edges. And she said, oh no, they're not gold edges. I wouldn't be able to wear it before noon. So if you have gold edges on your clothes, it must be afternoon.
The artistic Queen has an eye for a fabulous fabric that can be used in her wardrobe.
She was shopping in London and at a department store and saw some of this plastic-coated fabric, which actually I think is meant for summer tablecloths outdoors. And so she brought the fabric home and had Jørn Bender make it into a raincoat.
When it rains and she wants to put a smile on people's faces, she will wear her waxy floral garden tablecloth raincoat. I mean, it's out of this world. You know, that is the most eccentric thing. She's anti-minimalism completely. And isn't it funny that you can have a country that is known for this and its queen is the complete opposite? She's so extra.
As expressive as she is with her wardrobe, she's equally expressive in her opinions. It didn't always go down well.
That was not popular at the time when she said this. A lot of people were not agreeing with her.
In 2020, the coronavirus pandemic stunned the world. In Denmark, restrictions were put in place to contain the virus. Not all citizens took the government's advice. Frustrated with their behaviour, Queen Margrethe stepped in and addressed the nation in this frank public address in March 2020.
Man kan stadig se grupper i alle aldre, som opholder sig for tæt sammen. Nogen holder endda stadig fester og runde fødselsdage. Det synes jeg ikke, man kan være bekendt. Det er tankeløst, og det er først og fremmest hensynsløst.
There's an element of the monarch can talk to you a little bit like a school teacher and say, brace up and we're all in this together.
Ingen tvivl om, at en sådan tale, når det er dronningen, der holder den, har en langt større gennemslagskraft, end hvis det er en repræsentant for sundhedsmyndighederne.
This wasn't the first time she'd made her opinion known on the behaviour of her fellow Danes. She spoke openly about the country's attitude to immigration.
In the middle of the 80s, she was quite harsh, quite critical towards the Danes because she didn't feel that they were open. She didn't feel that they were welcoming people from outside, and she actually said that we should do more to welcome people from outside.
It is interesting how those aren't political statements, but they are way more sort of public statements of opinion than Queen Elizabeth II would ever give.
While Queen Margrethe can be a stern mother figure to her nation, the Danish people are more familiar with the fun-loving, generous woman, and so is the rest of the world.
Hvis man ser på verden udadtil, så er hun statsoverhovedet. Hun er den, der repræsenterer Danmark, når Danmark er for eksempel på statsbesøg, eller der kan være erhvervsrejser eller lignende.
Since her first official state visit in 1973 to Finland, the Queen has travelled the globe on over 50 official visits and received 58 state visits in return. Her role as an international diplomat is crucial for Denmark on the international stage.
The Queen of Denmark and her family, they are our best tools we have in the toolbox, you know, in the diplomatic toolbox, because this is where people learn about Denmark. So this little family is also a status symbol for us being Danish.
It's not all about travelling the world. In the Danish realm, Queen Margrethe is regularly seen by her people.
The Queen's major duty in Denmark is to make the Danes feel comfortable. She is traveling around Denmark every year. We have a royal yacht, which we are very happy to have, and the Queen will come sailing into the cities, and she is so happy doing that.
Queen Margrethe's diplomatic skills would come in useful at home. Her husband, Prince Henrik, was not always happy in his wife's shadow. In this 1974 documentary, he expresses his frustrations.
People expect you to do a tremendous lot of things, but they never expect you to be responsible for what you do, because you have to be in the shadow of somebody else.
Prince Henrik on several occasions has expressed his deep frustration with his role within the royal family. Once he gave an interview to a Danish newspaper, and in that interview he basically said that no one respected him, and he felt very, very sorry by that, because he has always tried to work for Denmark.
From the moment Henrik joined the royal family, he strove hard to be accepted. He won the hearts of the Danish people over time.
I think he got to a stage where he said, screw your opinions of me. I'm going to do what makes me happy. And he did. And at the end, people loved him for it.
He was very, very popular. Unfortunately, he started to challenge his positions within the royal family, and also in at some occasion he was extremely rude towards his wife. And he was a subject for some very harsh criticism.
Queen Margrethe understood Prince Henrik's frustrations. She always supported her husband. The couple were devoted to each other over their 50-year marriage.
They say that behind every great man is a great woman, and in this case it goes the other way around too. They were really true companions, but companions who share a bond of creativity that just makes it so special, you know? I think when a creative duo comes together, that's really magic.
In 2016, Prince Henrik retired from public life, yet he would occasionally speak to the press. In 2017, he caused outrage when he announced his refusal to be buried next to the Queen when the time came. It had been expected that the pair would be buried together in a specially designed sarcophagus at Roskilde Cathedral.
When Prince Henrik announces that he does not want to be buried next to his wife in Roskilde Cathedral, which has been the tradition, the Queen is very upset because she believes in continuity and in heritage and history, but she accepts her husband's decision.
This was shocking to hear this, and a lot of people reacted with anger towards the prince at the time. Then, after a very short time, we learned that Prince Henrik was sick. He was not in control of what he was saying and what he was doing.
On the 6th of September 2017, it was announced that the Queen's husband, Prince
Bara no kasikoto kimi kakakaka para kibokoga sonotoga wa kasite soni ke kakarite mirano sita pura.
diagnosed with dementia.
And it was very, very difficult time for the Queen and for the court and for the royal family and for everybody. That Prince Henrik wasn't well. He had the dementia.
Prince Henrik died in his sleep at Fredensborg Palace on the 13th of February 2018, surrounded by his family.
She missed her husband, of course, when he passed away. But I also think she was a little bit relieved. She has actually said that in public, because it was also a difficult life for her husband in the last period of his life.
He was a huge asset to the Danish royal family, huge asset. And it's remarkable how much people mourned when he died.
For the first time in her reign, Margrethe stepped back from her role as Queen of Denmark.
The loss of Henrik was huge for Margrethe, and she withdrew for a fortnight and, made her son Frederick regent to kind of rule on her behalf. And I think that shows quite how significant the loss was. Without him, she's a queen alone.
The Queen's sense of duty prevailed, and she was soon back where she belonged, on the throne of Denmark. Since her husband's death, Queen Margrethe has continued to work tirelessly for her country, with her son, Crown Prince Frederik, and his wife, Crown Princess Mary, by her side. Now Queen Margrethe has announced her abdication. Her son, Crown Prince Frederik, will take to the throne.
She is able to give the power to the next generation and feel secure that the next generation is ready for this enormous task.
For over 50 years, Queen Margrethe reigned over Denmark. It was her Golden Jubilee in 2022.
She's someone who understands her duty as queen and somebody who has fulfilled that job with a complete excellence. But she's also somebody who has never ever wanted to neglect her sort of vocation, her other vocation, which is the arts. She's hyper-creative.
She is still a very traditional monarch and upholds the sort of things that an earlier generation would approve of.
Queen Margrethe II can trace her lineage back to the first Viking kings of Denmark in the 10th century. The Queen is proud of the past, yet she has a very modern outlook on the world.
She is the monarch of one of Europe's oldest monarchies. You know, the Danish monarchy goes back centuries. There's a kind of modernisation that Margrethe has brought with her own personality.
Being able to work between a modern world and the old world, I think she's very good in combining those two things.
She has redefined not just the institution, but the relationship between queen and people.
Queen Margrethe II has changed what it means to be a monarch in a rapidly changing modern world.
She has moved the monarchy forward in all sorts of different ways, and certainly when she came to the throne, she was definitely determined, as indeed was Prince Henrik, I think, to make things more informal and to make changes subtly and gradually, which is what a good constitutional monarch will do.
I mean, I think perhaps you could argue that, you know, Margrethe is ahead of the curve in terms of showing a lighter touch of monarchy.
We see her a lot, and we follow the Queen in the social media. We know that she goes to the church every Sunday, wherever she is, and people want to meet the Queen, they can go to church.
She's opened it up. She understands that it's a positive thing, that people know your personality. She very much echoes this self-expression and defiance of a modern young generation.
I think that the new generation in the royal houses across Europe, they are actually looking at Queen Margrethe, because there's many lessons to learn.
Like Queen Margrethe, King Charles has spoken openly on subjects close to his heart.
I think she has a lot of things in common with Charles in a way, because Charles is someone who's not been afraid to show his personality and what he believes in and express himself in quite an authentic way.
After announcing her abdication on New Year's Eve, Queen Margrethe brought an end to her 52-year reign. As the longest-serving monarch in Europe and the only ruling queen in the world, Margrethe is a matriarch who has presided over half a century of peace and prosperity with a relaxed and inclusive style.
In politics, you can see our leaders, they will come and they will go. But during these 50 years, the Queen has been a constant. She has been there all the time, and she is a person that people really would like to listen to. And that's a quite a remarkable role to have in a modern society.
Sådan noget kommer ikke af sig selv. Det kommer på grund af et hårdt og meget dedikeret arbejde. Og det er det, dronningen leverer, og det er derfor, hendes stjerne er så højt.
I'm proud of being a part of the Queen's life. Not only privately, but also as being Danish, I would say. She is the one who gives us hope. She gives us hope, yeah. And she is the one directing us to the next generation.
I think her legacy probably very similar to that of Queen Elizabeth II, that she's given Denmark a very happy period of stability. I think it's been a very good reign.
She is like nobody else, and I think there's a certain beautiful irony in the fact that a very normal country up north like Denmark should have the most extravagant, eccentric, avant-garde queen of them all.